Hi, Steve and Heather. It's so nice to be sitting down with you here today at our new home at the warehouse. How you guys been? How's your journey been like in Dubai so far?
It's been lovely being back after 3 years as we were locked down with COVID. So, such a pleasure to be back in the city and to be back with the church.
We realized what a big part of us still lives in Dubai, and it's just been fantastic, to be back, and especially being with all of you. It's such a joy. Thank you.
That's great. It's so great to have you guys back in Dubai after such a long time. Obviously, COVID changed a lot of things. So I wanted to ask you guys, how long have you been here in church ministry?
Wow. Well, we had our own business originally, and so we had devoted ourselves to building a company, and God cut across our paths in about 1990, around that time, a long time ago. And it was a few years later when we really felt the call of God, 1994. And 2 years later, we laid the business down and moved away from home to follow the call of God. So it's all those years ago. It's quite something. And been an interesting journey.
Yeah, I think it's really great that you guys have always been so faithful and obedient to God's calling wherever that may take you. And you've just been so ready and willing to get up and serve. Even today, as we were listening in the preach, how you were just talking about because God said, it gave us the peace to do things for the will of God rather than the will of ourselves. And I really admire that obedience to God that I've seen in your lives. So I just wanted to know, maybe Heather, if you can just tell us a little bit about yourselves, your family, and your roots.
Right, well, we both are originally from Cape Town in South Africa, and we met and married in Cape Town, and all our children were born there. We have 3 sons, Cameron, Richard, and Adam, and they are all married. So we are very happy parents and happy grandparents to 3 grandchildren and another one on the way.
Wow.
So that is our eldest son in Montana, married to Lorene, and our 3 grandchildren, and as I say, one on the way. So we are very blessed in our family.
We met when we were 14 years old.
Gosh.
And it was in a church setting, in this wonderful youth ministry in a local church, that was the beginning of our journey. Although we never understood church fully at that stage, but later on, when we really saw the place of the church and understood all that God had created in her and through her, changed our lives. So it's been a long journey that started all those years ago.
Wow, that's amazing. So now you guys are based in Clarence, right? And you're serving in the church over there. So can you just tell us a little bit about what's going on in the church in Dikhlabeng and what's next for the Dikhlabeng family?
Yeah, sure. We left Dikhlabeng Church in 2010 to come here, and then obviously, as you know, from here to England. And it was quite a strange journey because during the years that we were away from South Africa, we often wondered what God had next. But God gave us a wonderful promise that He would take us back. And then when COVID started, we found ourselves back in South Africa and realized and saw the hand of God. So we've been very settled there. And as we came out of COVID, I began leading the team in Dikhlabeng again. Outstanding group of people. And it's just been very exciting to see what God's doing. We don't feel called to try and build what we did all those years ago. We feel it's really a new era, so we've looked to God afresh. And so we're building something that will become a base not only for us, a lovely home. Just so nice to have a local church where we can belong to with all the international stuff we do. And so it's very much a home, but also I believe it will be a base where we'll see many, many raised up and released, not only in our nation, but the nations. So it's going really well. I think the highlight most probably is two things: the togetherness. COVID had the opposite effect of separating everyone. So we've seen tremendous togetherness over the last months. And secondly, salvation. After a long time of not seeing people saved, we're so thrilled to see so many being saved. So yeah, it's been great, particularly among the young people. That's been the joy.
That's really incredible. Okay, so I wanted to know from your perspective, over 10 years ago, I think back in 2010, you guys were still based in Clarence in South Africa. And in Clarence, as you said, there's a lot of openness and a freedom to just to share the gospel and to spread the gospel. And there's more freedom over there in comparison to how it is over here. So I'm interested to know from both your perspectives, what was it like from you, if you can remember, moving from rural South Africa to a cosmopolitan, busy city, which is always on the go, like Dubai, and to serve in the church? What was that like for both of you?
It was such a change. I remember we have a very rustic farm road leading to our farm in Clarence, and we went from that onto an 8-lane highway. So it was a huge...
That's what it felt like, actually.
culture shock into a cosmopolitan city, but God was, I think, very good to us.
As Heather said, it was a big change. I think her analogy was very good. You know, from a bumpy old dust track to Sheikh Zayed Road. But God was very faithful, and I can remember him speaking to me personally like he did to Paul when he was in Corinth, and just saying, I have many people in the city. And so reaching out, building, seeing people saved and added was never ever a great pressure, because I knew God was doing something, and that changes everything. It takes a lot of pressure off. And we just loved it, absolutely loved it. And even being back in Dubai, as I said, a big part of us still lives here, I think.
That's really amazing. That sometimes it can feel like maybe it wasn't something that you would have ever expected to do, being based in Clarence in South Africa. It's so different, and there's so much culture and nature and a lot of natural beauty in South Africa. And obviously Dubai has beautiful parts of it, but it's also quite, like high-rise buildings and stuff like that. But the way that we can advance the gospel in this city, we can't ignore the calling and the purposes and the mission of God that we have in this city. And I think that when you guys came to Dubai all those years ago, you guys really started and catapulted a movement of the prophetic and the visionary, and a longing and a calling for the nations that you guys really helped to instill into the roots of Citygates Church. So that's just what I've seen from your journey. So it'd be really good if you guys can reflect on what have been the highlights of your pastoral journey here in the UAE.
Well, I think I would like to say it's been meeting different people groups. So, for instance, a Filipino culture, we'd never met any Filipinos ever since living in South Africa. So it was so wonderful to make friends amongst the Filipinos, amongst Indians, all the different nations, and seeing the hospitality of the different people groups and the family feel that we came across in the UAE, because so many people had left homes and had left family, and so we became family to each other. And there is something very, very special about that, and we still count so many people as our friends in this nation.
Yeah, it was a fantastic journey and a great privilege. The natural beauty of South Africa, as you say, is quite magnificent. The people as well, just so rich and vibrant. And then coming on here, we just found more of the same. But most probably you lean into the relationships more here in some respects. And yeah, it just built us up. We learned so much being here from the different people groups. And I think that's the thing, why God loves diversity, because we all think we know it until you meet others and you think, wow, they're so hospitable. We thought we were good. And then you see them, more so, or you think, oh, our worship or our food or whatever is better, and then you think, oh no, it's not, It's just incredible.
Yeah.
That whole journey is just magnificent. So we really loved it, and learning to see how the Bible speaks to every people group on earth, and just seeing how to understand that and what really counts in different cultures. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I think one of the most beautiful things about Dubai is the diversity and the difference in cultures, and you're really exposed to different backgrounds, different religions, different nationalities in a way you probably wouldn't get in like different places. And that's, I think, the heart of like why it's so important to have a church, because church goes beyond diversity, goes beyond our background, goes beyond nationalities, because once we come together as a church, we're just one together. And I think that Dubai really provides a place for us to really come together as a church, no matter our backgrounds or no matter our cultures or our nationality, and really feel like we can be one with each other, which is really the beauty of church. So I want to talk a little bit about the transition from when, after you guys had been in Dubai for a couple of years, you felt a calling to then move to the UK, and you handed over to Fuzi, who had like humble beginnings. He was a waiter. He was talking about it today, how he started off as a waiter and now he's like a pastor of Citygates Church. So can you just talk a little bit about what that transition was like for you, handing over to Fuzi's, obviously a church that you guys had invested so much of your life, energy, time, resources into, and then handing it over to Fuzi, and also seeing how Citygates has sort of come together, growing, multiplying, and then coming back in under one roof and one permanent home.
Well, let me begin just by saying Fuzi's very, very humble when he says that, because he's a substantial person, and his waitering was just on the side. He's very well qualified, and I can remember the day someone offered him the most incredible job in Southern Africa, and I met with him and I had to say to him, could you rather join me and come into the nations? And he laid everything down for that, which was superb, and so I'm so grateful to God for his life and the way that he's gone on. For us, the very nature of the word apostle is sent one, and it's not a title, it's a calling, it's a commission. And so I think when all those years ago, I can remember it very clearly, 1992, when I first felt the call of God, I gave my life to the nations and to following God. And I'm very, very, very blessed to have Heather, and she's been amazing in terms of moving and following. And I can remember talking to her about Dubai. I said to her, I feel God's called us to Dubai, and she nodded and said, yes, I can see that. I thought, what?
Wow, that's amazing.
But that's what we gave our lives for, and it's never easy. When we left South Africa to come here, we wept. It was one of the hardest things I've done in my life. And then when we said goodbye to all of you in Dubai to go to the UK, it was terribly difficult. But I think that's the nature of what we build. And I was saying to someone earlier today, that we must never harden our hearts against that feeling. We want to be like Paul, on the beach at Miletus, where he says, once we'd said goodbye and torn ourselves apart or torn ourselves away. And it is like that, but we've got to let that happen and keep going.
And I think God also, to be obedient, he honors that, and he gives you grace for it. So I think every step of the way, we have felt the grace of God on us and on our family as we have made these changes and transitions. So we know we can trust him.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So just in closing, I just really wanted to know from you guys, what are your thoughts on Citygates, and do you have any words of encouragement for us?
Well, firstly, we just love the name.
And the logo.
Yes, and the logo. How it just pulls the two congregations together into one big family under God, and it's just such a blessing to see what a seamless joining it is. Even in this first or second Sunday that we have met together, so it's a real blessing to see.
Yeah, and one can just see God's hand, His fingerprints on it. I mean, to say it bluntly, so often churches break up and separate and split. And to see brothers laying down so much to come together because God said so is impressive, beautiful.
Yes.
And I think God's just going to honor it. And so we'll watch with great pride and excitement of what God's going to do here. And once again, you know, such a responsive, godly, diverse, beautiful people. It's just incredible. So it's been a wonderful day.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic.
And I think to see the humility of the two leaders and the leading couples in this church, how they're pointing to God, you know, not to each other, and it's beautiful to see these families.
That's great. That's beautifully said. Thank you so much for your time here today. Thank you for sharing your journey. Thank you for the way you've mentored us at Citygates, and how you've mentored Fuzi, and how you've just really prayed prophetically for our church. We really do appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan. Lovely to see you again after all these years.
Yes.
Fantastic.